Hello everyone, and welcome to an episode of Exploring the Arts Around Us. I'm Monica Merrell, a Peters Township resident and lover of art in all its forms. This series is designed to showcase and promote some of the local arts organizations in our area that create and celebrate various types of art. This program will showcase stained glass, and hopefully you will be inspired to investigate further. With me today is Ruth Mahoney, the owner of the Glass Place. Welcome, Ruth. Thank you for inviting us to your studio.
Thank you for asking me.
First, I'd like to just introduce, let's say, where your studio is. The Glass Place is in the Montour Buildings, Georgetown Road, which is at the end of Valley Brook, right where the trestle is, and it converts underneath. So you've been here, what, 20 years?
20 years in May.
Very good.
20 years, yes.
Very good. And prior to that, you had a shop in another location?
We were at Donaldson's Crossroads in a shop called Signature Glass for 6 years.
Very good.
And then the persons that I was involved with decided that they didn't want to do this anymore. So we opened up another place because a lot of our customers were missing doing this and really wanted me to continue.
So this location is 20 years?
It's 20 years in May.
Very
yes.
good. So we're standing in the beginning of the shop. It's the retail area. And in this area is where you provide for your customers tools, supplies, various books, any of the materials that they might need to create stained glass.
Right.
And then we also have a gift shop. And can you talk a little bit about what's behind us here?
All of the items that are here in our front of the store have been made at the Glass Place here by someone here in the Glass Place, either in classes or by one of our persons who work here or myself. Everything's made here. There's nothing that's been purchased. And one of the nice things about it is that there are classes available for everything that is here. So if you wanted to learn how to make a lamp, then you could come to a lamp class. If you wanted to learn how to do fusing, you come to a fusing class.
Right.
And we have mosaics, you can come and do mosaics. So this is all kinds of different parts and different types of stained glass.
So Ruth, this is 20 years when you've been in the shop. Have you been working in stained glass for 20 or longer? How many years?
Oh, much, much longer.
Much
Yeah,
longer.
I've been working in stained glass for about 40 years.
And how did you get started? Was it something you had studied?
No, not really. I was involved in art classes and so on, and we found out ourselves the other day that we were in the same art classes when we were in grade school.
Carnegie Museum.
Carnegie Museum.
Tam O'Shanter art classes.
And we went to those on Saturday mornings, and we drew, and we enjoyed
Sketched,
that.
crayons and pencils.
Right. And then along a time after that, my sister asked me one night if I would want to go to stained glass classes. She had bought classes for us. And I was really, fascinated. So I went to the classes with her, and she never did anything else in stained glass, but I was totally into it the first night.
The bug bit
and
you.
I had bought all my glass, all my tools the first night. I was ready to go, and I have never stopped.
Wonderful, wonderful. But that wasn't your career. Art wasn't your career, from what I remember.
No, I was an English teacher, and then I actually taught sewing. After that,
There you go.
and worked for Bernina Corporation and did a lot of sewing. And a lot of things about sewing can be translated into doing stained glass as well.
Oh, piecing things together.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so when you do sewing, you have a background that kind of gives you the idea about how to make some stained glass pieces as well.
Well, that's an interesting analogy. I wouldn't have thought about that. I sew too, but you're absolutely right. You take something, a big piece of something, and you cut it into smaller pieces, and then you put it all back together again.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So this is your retail area, and again, please, if you're thinking about getting into stained glass, come on down, take a look at some of the products that you could create. You could pick up a nice, unique gift, and maybe get a little inspired to go on and take one of the classes. So let's take a short break, and what we'll do is come back soon and meet you in the studio where all the real action takes place.
Right.
So, see you in a few. Welcome back to our episode of Exploring the Arts Around Us. Today we're visiting the Glass Place with its owner and stained glass artist, Ruth Mahoney. We're in her studio now, and she's going to give us a little bit of a tour, show us the materials and the equipment that make stained glass artwork possible. So Ruth, why don't you show us what you have?
Well, we'll start with our glass. We have, as you can see down here, all sorts of glass in different bins here. And the glass that's usually on this side of the store is for regular stained glass. And the glass that we have on this side of the store is for fusing. And fusing is the process of heating glass in a kiln, and we do both of these things. And so we have lots of pieces of glass here, hundreds of pieces of glass, and some of them are various types of glass. We have glass here that is just absolutely beautiful, and this is various types of the things that you can use for making lamps, making panels, and most of our customers come in and they have some kind of an idea about what they want to create, and so we give them the idea, we give them all this glass to choose from. And so, go ahead.
So just a little bit of background. Ruth and I talked, and there is no clear historical point in time when glass was actually developed. Nobody can pinpoint, a historian, as to when glass was actually created. They think it could be 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, and perhaps by accident. But what I wanted to point out, glass was originally clear. It's mostly made of the same thing, silica, sand, and quartz, potash. But when you get to this point where it becomes the beautiful colors, it's because of mineral oxides that are added. And Ruth was showing me some beautiful pieces and how the different colors and the different minerals involved are what makes the glass prices change. And how you explained the burgundies are much more expensive than some of the other colors.
We have cranberry glass, for example. You take a piece of cranberry glass like this. This is an absolutely beautiful piece of cranberry glass. And it is usually made with either cadmium or gold to give it the color. And because of that, of course, it's much more expensive, but it's absolutely incredible glass when you look at it.
So if you can see, Ruth has followed the basic art rules of arranging everything in the color palette so that you can pick out what you'd like. And the colors are fabulous. Different variations of color, different patterns in the glass. And as you said, this is for the stained glass. And it's because it's tempered differently.
Well, stained glass is not set up to work. There's a word that they use when you talk about fused glass. It's called co-efficiency. That means it kind of like a family of glass that works together.
Okay.
And so everything that you put into the kiln in a project has to have the same co-efficiency or be in the same family of glass. Otherwise, it will split, it will explode, it will crack, and you won't have the beautiful project that you want. So you can't just take any piece of glass and put it in the kiln and have it with another piece of glass. So you have to be careful when you're doing kiln work that you make sure that the glass that you're working with is to be used with a kiln. Okay. And so that is some of the things that we really try to make sure that we tell people and we teach people.
So we'll get to the kilns in a few minutes. As we walk through here, though, I wanted to call your attention to some of the forms, the different shapes that are sitting around. Those obviously at the top of the shelf are glass, stained glass.
These are all forms that are
lamps.
used to make Tiffany lamps.
Tiffany lamps.
These are all made to use Tiffany lamps. And some of them are just, they're so huge. And they have so many pieces. There's some of them, for example, this one over here, we have made this, and I have a picture of this that I can give you. But it has almost 2,000 pieces of glass in it.
My goodness.
And so some of these are really very much, when you start to make a Tiffany lamp, it's a commitment that you make because you have to know that you're going to really work on this and that you're really going to get it done.
So we were talking about analogies about sewing and stained glass, but I guess if you're a puzzle lover, if you like to put puzzles together, this might be another thing that's right up your alley.
It's fascinating because that is like putting a puzzle together.
Very good.
And when you use the pieces of glass to put your puzzle together, it's amazing. And we have a Tiffany class going right now. And we have about 8 people in the class, and a woman came in the other day with a crocus lamp that she is making.
Lovely.
And it was just amazing how beautifully she had cut all the pieces and how perfect it looked.
When you do something like that and you have it in your home and you can showcase for yourself that you yourself made it, I think it adds just an extra special something to the project. So what are these? These look more like bowls or plates.
Over here, these are ceramic molds. And these ceramic molds are made to what we call slump things into or drape things over. When you fuse something, you fuse it in a flat shape, and then that shape is formed by putting it in one of these molds. Okay. And we have some in our kiln over here, or getting ready to go into the kiln, which we can show you as we walk through our studio here.
So I think a lot of people know what a kiln is, but why don't you explain, and these are like little ovens, so if you want to go ahead.
We have kilns here. These are glass kilns, and glass kilns differ from pottery kilns in that the glass kilns have elements in the roof of the kiln instead of just on the sides, because the glass has to have heat from the top of the kiln. In a pottery kiln, you can layer things all the way up your pottery kiln and use it, but you can't layer things like that in a glass kiln. And most of the kilns that we have back here all have these digital controllers, and so we can program things into the kiln, and they can be set up so that they have a time to, everything that you do in the fusing has to have a time to heat up and a time to cool down. And so these are schedules that we have, and whole books are written about schedules. But these are things that we've learned, over the years in how to do and how to, tell our customers about.
And you have different sizes for the different size projects that you do.
Right. And then these things over here, this is what we call powder right here. This has been glass that has been ground into powder, which is just like a talcum powder.
It has a cute name.
These are just like powdered elements, and we can go and use powder in making things out of glass. And we have, if you come a little farther, we have other types. We have fine frit and coarse frit and so on, other types of frit that you can use in your glass pieces. And these are pieces here. One of our customers was in today, John was in today, and he makes these eggs to give to people in his church. Oh. And he made all these today for us to fire so that he can give these to some of the children in his church.
Well, that's such a lovely little keepsake.
And then these are glass pieces that we have made. We call these cracked plates. And as you can see, they have like a cracked. They look like puzzles that have been put together. And so these are put into these molds. And when we get finished, they will be a bowl in the shape of the mold that's in here.
So it sort of sinks
it goes down, it slumps into the mold.
That's where the words comes from.
And so these are some other kilns and some other pieces that we have here. This is one of the waves that was made. This is one of the waves that was made in our class that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Then we have other things that we work on. We do commission work. This is a transom here that we're making for someone's home, and it's a leaded window that is made with lead and glass. And then we repair lamps. We repair and make lamps.
This is beautiful. This is a dragonfly.
This is a dragonfly lamp, and actually one of our customers started this a lot of years ago and got kind of, he didn't want to finish it. And so he brought it to us, and we're finishing it for him.
So this is ironic to me because if you just look at it, it looks like it's done. But in fact, you're adding some filigree so that you actually can see the wings of the dragonfly. They look really realistic.
They have to be put on and all soldered on. So this is part of the things that we're doing.
This is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So these are more examples?
These are examples of fused plates that Tiffany made. She teaches a class in reactive glass. That means the glass, if you look at these closely, you can see that the glass reacts with each other so that we have lines and so on that were not in this when it originally came. These nuggets were put in here on top, and they have different lines around them that react with the different chemicals in the glass.
But this isn't an example of what you said earlier about worrying about mixing glass. This is purposeful?
This is purposely mixing the glass.
Okay.
And these are made with sometimes there's copper in the glass, sometimes there is sulfur in the glass. There are other things in the glass that make them react with one another. And sometimes you get beautiful pieces of glass that are just from the reactive type of things in the glass. And so there's a class in this that makes a really interesting class.
So what are these along the side here? Are they?
We have to look at this is an octopus that Tiffany made.
An
and
octopus. Oh, I see an octopus.
See the
eyes?
octopus with all the things that she's made.
It looks like it's on a surfboard.
And there's a
Steeler
wonder what
plate.
this might be. There's a Steeler plate.
See, there's something for everyone.
And so these are and here's a little piano keyboard.
Oh my God, how adorable.
There's a little piano keyboard that you could make.
So you just never know. There's so many opportunities, so many options.
There are just a huge number of ways that you can be involved in the glass and so on.
Okay.
And then these are grinders that we have here. These grinders help you to take the glass pieces and get them into the right shape that you can use. And these are...
And we'll see what that means when we start looking at an example, a demonstration.
And we have some other pieces up here that we have put together. This is a large piece of what is called dichroic glass.
Dichroic.
That it has a metallic oxide finish on it. And we put it together, and we've just fused this a couple of days ago, but it's just an absolutely incredible piece of glass.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So,
and you have some heavy equipment here. You
yes,
have a saw, a couple saws over here.
We have a saw. We have a ring saw here that we can cut pieces on, and it cuts pieces in all directions so that you can cut it. Cuts pieces that you can't really cut easily with a glass cutter. You can cut very easily with the saw. And then we also have a tile saw over here where we can cut pieces of glass apart that are an inch thick, and we can use them for different types of construction of glass.
Well, Ruth, it looks like you have everything anyone would need to do various types of glass projects. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break here? And then we'll get set up so that you can do demonstrations so we can show the viewers how some of these projects are created and how some of the beautiful artwork comes to be. Right. So why don't we'll take a break and you all come back in a few minutes, please.
Okay.
See you then. Welcome back, everyone. You're watching an episode of Exploring the Arts Around Us with our hostess, Monica Merrell, and our guest, Ruth Mahoney from the Glass Place. We're introducing one of Ruth's teachers, Tiffany Hanson, whose specialty is fused glass. We're going to go ahead and do a demonstration of something called cracked plate, so I'm going to let Tiffany and Ruth take over.
In our class, in our beginning fusing class, one of the things that you make in the second class is what is called a cracked plate. And we have samples of these cracked plates here. And what this is, it's a unique thing because you never can crack a plate twice the same way. So what we're doing is we're making a cracked plate. This is going to be our finished product today. This is a cracked plate that has been cracked and heated in the kiln and then formed in a mold. But we're going to take you back to the beginning of this and show you how we arrived at this. So, Tiffany, we have a piece of blue glass here, and we've used this blue glass already to cut a circle of this blue right here. Then we're going to cut a piece of glass, this glass here, and we're going to cut it so that it is just a little bit smaller than the piece that we used there. It's about an inch smaller. So we have cut this out, and we've used a circle cutter, and we've used our circle cutter to cut this. And this circle cutter is great because it is where you cut this, it shows the radius of your glass so that the whole thing is cut. So we're going to set this up on our piece of glass here, and we always have to put in you want to get a pen? Oh, yeah. We always have to put a line around the center of where we're cutting this, because if something happens and this shifts while we're doing this, we won't have any way of knowing where this was. So we've got to do that back there. And then we're going to cut this just like this. we're just taking this upside down so that we have nice place to open this up. And we're going to cut our piece. And when we cut this, it ends up so that we have a piece of circular glass. That's not the... There's our circle that we have for the bottom of our piece. Then we're going to take this circle, and we have one here that we've already cleaned. And Tiffany's going to take this over, and she's going to smash this for us with a hammer. And so usually you don't smash glass, but this is one time when smashed glass is really worth doing. Here, we'll just do it on the end there. So we're going to set this up, and we're just going to take take a hammer, and go ahead and take your, you can explain what you're doing.
So find where it is that you want to hit it, maybe in the center or off center.
Probably not real close to the edge though, right?
Right.
No, not close to the edge.
Sometimes it takes more than once.
And then look and see what happened. We have, it broke, and we did it on purpose. And so now this is, if people like doing puzzles and so on, this is really great, because now you want to come back, and we have pieces that we've cut. These are the pieces that we've cut, and we have rearranged them on the dark blue piece. And so Tiffany, you want to just show them how they can rearrange those on there and how they put the...
Do you want me to take this one? Or?
No, we'll just do this one.
So the pieces, once you bring it back, you're going to start sorting them out back onto this piece and recreate your puzzle. So just take that and transfer it over there, and you want to spread out your little pieces. And sometimes you end up with a little empty space in the middle, so we like to fill it either with little pieces of glass or with a bead. But yeah, you just spread them out and get that all nice and balanced and all your cracks even, and then we can put it in the kiln.
And we usually put a little glue on it. We put a little glass tack glue or some hairspray. We use old-time hairspray. Like, what are the kinds we use?
Rave, Suave.
Anything that's old.
Hairspray works really well.
We use hairspray, and so you just want to put a little hairspray on there. Well, just...
Oh, this one.
That's just...
Let me get a small one on this one, say. Sorry. Okay. Just to tack down those pieces.
Just to tack down the pieces.
I'm going to move that one over a little bit.
That's good. Then we take this piece then to the kiln, and we set it in the kiln, and we set up the temperature and talk about the programs that we use in the kiln.
So we'll take it up to a pretty high temperature for this type of glass. Ruth already addressed that there are two different kinds of glass that we use for fusing, two different groups. This one will go up. They go up almost to anywhere between 1465 to 1480 for a full fuse, depending on the type of glass that it is. And then we'll bring it down to its anneal point in the 900s, and that will help everything come together so that it's a nice strong piece of glass as it slowly cools after that.
So this is called the fused glass process.
Yes.
How long will that have to be in the kiln?
About 24 hours, a little bit less usually, but it depends on the project that you're making. If you're making something really thick, you have to take it up very slowly and bring it down very, very slowly. If it's a thinner if it's a project maybe with just two pieces of glass together, in about 24 hours, a little less.
Do you ever put a third layer, or is it usually just 2 layers?
Yes, and that project over there has 3 layers as well.
Okay. All right, we'll get to that. Why don't I let you finish? I just wanted to ask a few questions so we could clarify the process.
Okay. Now we have a relatively new class that we have called a wave.
And this is fused glass again?
This is fused glass again.
That looks a little bit trickier than just cracking it with a hammer.
Tiffany is teaching this class with a couple of the other ladies that we have, and you want to explain to them a little bit about how the wave is made. So I'm going to get one to show them.
Yeah, the wave, we used strips of different colors of glass. So we've got, in this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors of glass. a couple of different turquoises and a blue and 2 of these aquamarine colors and some clear. So we take these strips of glass and cut out these shapes like this out of those strips, and then we assemble them. We just assemble them around in this wave and overlay different pieces so that we get this nice wave effect.
It must be difficult, or is it difficult, I should ask, to get the variation so that it shows the light to the dark to the different shades?
It takes a little bit of focus, a little bit of concentration, but it's not bad, especially when you have an idea of how to proceed. You just start out with the light, and you just gradually get darker and then get lighter. You can shift colors as you change.
And that's for that I guess you
That's
could do
just for
whatever.
that project.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and
guess
the artist can create whatever they want.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. So that's another example of the fused glass. Now we said we were talking about stained glass. So then you're going to show us a stained glass project also.
Right.
Okay.
And stained glass has been, in a long, many number of years from stained glass. And like Monica said before, nobody knows really where stained glass started. I was up at the Corning Museum a few years ago, and that's what they said. They had samples of glass, but nobody really knew where they were, when they were, had occurred.
Well, they talked about, we talked before about how in the medieval times, a lot of the rich people, the wealthy aristocrats, promoted the arts. And in this particular case with stained glass, churches were the ones who promoted stained glass making. Right. They had these huge, beautiful churches, but they were very dark. So they thought about, once they figured out how to put color into glass, they thought they would make windows. And that was really the big focus of stained glass for a long time.
And for many years then, they used what were called lead cames to make the windows. And the lead cames were, they were long pieces of glass that were set up so that you could put the glass between pieces of this lead, and then you made them with this lead, so that the glass fitted between the pieces of lead.
Okay.
And most of the cathedral windows were made with wider cane like this. So there was really no particular need for, like grinders and so on like that, because the glass fit into the channels of the lead.
Right.
And so these were very important in those days. And then it came around a time when Tiffany came into renown. They had a process called copper foil technique. And the copper foil technique came into vogue, and what it did is it made people actually be able to make glass much more accessible to themselves. Rather than making big windows, they could make smaller objects, and they would take pieces of copper foil and wrap the glass in the copper foil rather than using big lead techniques. And so they could use much smaller pieces and get much more intricate pieces done that way. And if you can see some of the Tiffany lamps that were made and Tiffany windows that were made, they were just
fabulous.
They were just absolutely fabulous.
So Ruth is going to give us the steps for creating a stained glass project. And this is sort of an entry-level project for someone who might first want to learn. And
this would be like what our basic stained glass class would be. And it's a 3-time class. And in the 3 times, you learn this process. And then you can use this knowledge of how to cut the glass and how to take care of it and so on in all the other avenues of stained glass. So the first thing we do is we have a kit. And the kit contains 2 patterns. We're using this pattern today. This contains 2 patterns and enough glass to make the piece that we're going to be making. And so here we have a background piece of clear glass for the flower that we're making. We have a glass for the flower, and we have a glass for the leaves that we have. And so the first thing that we do is we take our pattern and we number the whole pattern. You have to number all the pieces on the pattern. And then we have a piece of contact paper that we put on the pattern so that when the glass gets wet, it won't come off your pattern. And then we mark also the directional flow of the glass on here, because sometimes that's very important. Because when you take the flowers, for example, and you put your flower petals on here, you want them to be like the flower, like the glass pattern that you have here. So then we cut out the pattern. And when you cut out the pattern, you use special scissors. The scissors that you use are called foil shears. And these foil shears, when you cut them out, when you look at the paper like this, and there's a piece of paper hanging down the back here, this is where your foil is going to fit on your piece so that it will take out the place of where you had cut your glass, cut your pattern. And so if you don't use these foil shears to cut your pattern, then the piece just gets larger and larger and it doesn't fit very well. So those are all our pieces. After you have the pattern pieces cut out, and we have cut out a pattern piece here, we'll just cut out a pattern piece here. We can cut them really nice with our scissors. And we find out that these scissors leave this little piece of paper. This is where your foil is going to be. So then we take our pieces after we've cut them, and we take a little bit of rubber cement, and we take the patterns and we put some rubber cement on the patterns, and we put the patterns on the glass. And so the patterns are on the glass, and you get the best look that you can.
And this is where you mentioned directional, and this is where you want them theoretically to be going in a similar direction so you can get
because leaves go in this direction. They don't go this way. So when the glass is going in this direction, this is the way you want your leaves to go.
So does glass sort of has a grain like wood has a grain? I mean, or maybe just the design looks like the grain.
Well, it has a streakiness. It has a pattern to it. Some of it.
Cool.
Some of it does. And so when you do that, you use that to your advantage when you're making your piece.
Very good.
And so you want to, hand me my cutters over there, please. So you take your glass cutter, and when you take your glass cutter, you're just going to cut along the edge of your piece of your paper here. Then you take your, thank you. Take one of your tools, and you break it apart, and there's the one side of your leaf.
I have to tell you that I'm completely fascinated that this little tip cuts that glass so quickly like that without any kind of shattering.
Oh,
That's
yes.
amazing.
Well, it's kind of the way that you do it. You have to learn how to, do this in the right way so that when you do this, you can cut very close to your pattern pieces. And as you cut them, this is your pattern piece that then you're going to use. So you can take this pattern piece and we take it to the grinder. And when we take it to the grinder, we can shape it so that it is exactly the size of the piece that we started with our paper. Now, we take this to one of our grinders and we grind it all around the edge so that it matches exactly to the paper that we have on here. So then we're going to take our pieces and we put them all together in our pattern. All these pieces have been ground. So now they all have to be fitted together. And so the pieces are all fitted together and they are ready now to what we are going. And if there's any mistakes, you have to take it back to the grinder and do it again until you find out that it's all fitting together.
So this is the underneath part is the pattern, and then you use these little pins to try to keep everything within the diameter of the design.
Right, exactly. Okay. And so then after everything is ground to fit, have I forgotten anything, Tiffany? After these are all ground to fit, then you take your pieces and you foil your pieces. And foiling is the process of putting this copper foil around your piece so that it is ready then to solder.
So then you're taking them back out and wrapping them?
We take them back out and we wrap them. So we're going to take this piece over here, which has all been wrapped, and we're going to wrap a piece of our glass here. And so we start wrapping this piece of glass, and we go all around the outside edge of the glass with the foil, and we go all around the outside edge. Whoops. And you try to make sure that it is evenly distributed so that you have the same amount of glass, same amount of foil on each side of your glass. And so as you do this, then you take a tool called a FID, F-I-D, and you go around the edge of your glass. all around the edge of your glass so that you have a nice even layer all the way around your glass. And my layer today is not as even as I'd like it to be because I'm just doing this in a hurry. Then what we do is we would take this and we roll this so that everything's nice and tight, and we place this in our pattern so that everything now is, we have the whole pattern together.
Beautiful.
Then we're going to take this and we're going to solder this. Now, I don't know if do you want us to solder or not?
If you'd like to. I think it would be interesting for people to see how the actual end product is achieved. Okay. Now, this is a beautiful floral pattern, and many of the early Tiffany and LaHarve, I think his name was. What was his name? The other gentleman who did.
It was oh my.
We'll figure
remember the name.
The gentleman, there were two lamp people, and then along comes a gentleman named Frank Lloyd Wright. Lafarge. Thank you. Lafarge. Lafarge and Tiffany were kind of competitors doing lamps and things of that nature. A lot of floral, a lot of intricate patterns. And then as time went on, Frank Lloyd Wright got into stained glass. Now, I always knew him as an architect, never realized that the stained glass he used in his buildings were creations of his.
Right.
And he did a much more architectural, straight lines. He didn't want to obscure the landscape is what his approach was. But you can do almost anything with glass, any kind of a design.
Yes, you can. And you can make, whatever kinds of, Tiffany's making a pattern right now that's a clown.
Oh my.
Or no, it's an elephant. It's an elephant. And it has how many pieces?
172.
172 pieces. And it's going to be a real work of art when it's done.
So do you then, so for something like that, is that a pattern or did you design that yourself?
That was taken from a painting that someone had done.
Beautiful.
And turned into a pattern.
Okay, so you're going to solder.
And all the other, and we have the other ladies who work here in the shop, all do stained glass. They all do fusing, and some of them are really good at it. Tina, who is our office manager, has made beautiful window for her bathroom at home. Made some really lovely lamps and so on, and Tammy, who works here. She and her husband both do the glass, and they have made especially a great big West Virginia mountain man. And it's a huge window with a big West Virginia mountain man.
Wow.
And that's really good. And then we have some other ladies who work and who help to teach our classes and so on. And we all like working together. We have a lady named Valley and another lady named Julie. And we all work together to do what we're doing here in the shop.
So you're going to fuse this. It's stained glass. We've seen fused glass, and you also do mosaic.
Oh, right.
We won't be doing a demonstration of the mosaic right now, but mosaic, to me, is also interesting, another puzzle type of project. And you have classes in mosaic, and you have some examples of mosaic around your shop.
Okay. Now I'm just going to solder a little bit of this, but we take lead solder, and we are still allowed to use lead solder in the art glass field. And we're going to take some solder and a soldering iron, and we just take the solder and place the solder down like this, and the iron and the solder comes off the iron like so, and it comes down like this, and we solder all these pieces together as we go. And so and this is a process that you can learn in this class, and the process is something that you can really use. And the soldering, you can use even decorative soldering to make some really neat, things as well.
So now you offer classes in all of the different aspects of glass art that we talked about. Crack plate, mosaic, stained glass, fused glass. So now we see you working with some pretty exciting tools. What is the age level? Like, when would it be appropriate for a person to begin to learn this? Do you have teenagers who come in, young? I wouldn't imagine young children.
Not too young, I would say, but
I think probably maybe 13, 14 years old. if parents are really interested and the children are interested, they can come, as a team. But you have to remember that glass is glass. And there's a possibility of getting cut. There's a possibility of getting hurt with a soldering iron and so on. So there has to be some kind of responsibility, for what's being done.
Absolutely.
So after we solder all this, then we're going to clean all this. This gets all soldered on both sides, and we put a piece of nice lead around the edge, and then you have your finished project where you have your and you patina it, which means that you put on a stain on the solder so that it gives it a nice dark finish. This is a traditional Tiffany type method of doing this, and it makes a beautiful piece. And a lot of people really like these because they make wonderful gifts for people. I mean, for an anniversary, a birthday, whatever, they make really wonderful gifts. So that's how you make your project.
Good. So we're getting to the point where we're going to wrap up the program. Let's just remind the viewers where the stained glass place is located, the Montour buildings.
We're in the old Montour mine, 4 mine buildings, and it's on Georgetown Road. And it's right by the underpass that goes right through to Valley Brook Road.
Right.
And so this is where we are. We've been here for 20 years, and we would be delighted to have you. And I think it would be a good program for you to be involved.
Something to try.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the different other interests that people might have between sewing and puzzles and crafts that would translate to this. You don't need a lot of skill to start this, from what I can see. You need to have an interest.
One of the things that a lot of customers have said that it is a kind of a hobby that really takes them in themselves, so that they get really involved in it, and it kind of is a stress relief for a lot of people. It's a kind of excitement about it when they actually make something. One of the ladies who works for us is making a logo for her daughter's company.
Oh, wow.
And when she saw how it was coming together, she was almost in tears the other day. She could hardly believe that this was the way it was actually going to look. So you can do almost anything. And if we're here to help you. If you don't know how to cut glass, we teach you how to do it. And we have lots of patience and lots of interest in what we do.
So you can come and learn classes, you can come and buy tools, you can buy glass for your own projects.
Right.
You have gift certificates available.
We do.
And you have a lovely gift shop with pre-made pieces for very, very unique gifts for people. Now you do have, you're basically here during the day.
Right.
Restricted as you start around 11 and go till about 4, right?
Yeah, but most of our classes are either in the evening.
Okay.
Our classes in the evening usually go between 6:30 and 8:30.
Okay, that'll work.
And we have classes on Saturday as well. And sometimes during the week, we start classes during the day at 10 o'clock in the morning.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to think about coming out to visit. Come in and look around, see whether or not it might be something you'd be interested in doing. This has been a wonderful example to show you all the different things you can do, and to show you that it's not intimidating when you have a teacher like Ruth and like her colleagues who can show you start to finish what to do. We'll wrap it up now. Thank you again, Ruth, for having us.
Welcome.
It's been a really, really enjoyable time. Thank you. You've inspired me. Let me.
Are you going to be in a class?
I might. I have to come down. I was actually speaking to my granddaughter about that, thinking maybe I'll bring her down. She's 13, so we're right at that cusp.
That's good.
So I always like to finish with a quote about whatever art we're doing. And the one I found was Oscar Wilde, and he says, "Color can speak to the soul in 1,000 different ways." I agree with that. I think that learning how to do stained glass, whether in looking at stained glass and seeing the light through a window, whether it's a church window or a sun catcher in your own home, really gives you a lift. So I'm hoping that what you've learned here about the glass place and about stained glass and fused glass and all the other forms of glass art will now inspire you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.